that is what is ongoing. In fact, yesterday I was, 2 days ago, I was on the Skype with Brett to celebrate that. Really, we just, the $75,000 worth of in-kind donation and cash has hardly scratched the surface. So I think that is the short term. I think in the medium and long term, we have got good programs in maternal and child health in conjunction with direct relief in terms of maternal obstetric care. And what happens in this part of Africa, especially where we are stationed, is actually is the issue of maternal deaths. You know, we have one every day. So, you know, it's a normal occurrence. One of the biggest things which DRI has invested in is actually trying to find sponsors and working with organizations and individuals and corporations to actually fund putting obstetric theaters in health centers and dispensaries along the lake region. And these are simple theaters where even clinical officers and emergency nurses practitioners can do cesarean sections. And using that, we can actually go back to village and convince women to come and deliver. So that is one of the biggest programs which we are actually running across this region, which is really doing well. Currently, we're working in 2 islands, which are on Lake Victoria, with about 3,500 to 4,000 people who really have to travel at night in some really funny-looking boats to go and access services. So that gives you the array of the problems. Obviously, African problems you never end. But I think every little helps is what we normally say here.
Wow.
Those numbers are really staggering.
That was 782,000 displaced, you said?
Yeah, I mean, that is in Turkana and Wajir region. At the moment, those are the refugees who are crossing the border and coming to different camps. We are working on 13 different camps in Kakuma region in Turkana, where we are actually tracking essential medicine. And essential actually means, to give you an example, last week, is basically we've had massive flooding affecting a lot of people. So a lot of people are displaced, requiring blankets, requiring tents, requiring nothing. But obviously what we decided to do working with our partner Direct Relief is actually, we're going to concentrate on one thing. Other people can do the food, we will do the medicine, we'll do the general cholera antibiotics, we'll do the general IV foods, we'll do the general, and working with the government who is providing the human resource, which is the most expensive bit, thought that we can make a huge difference. So in those 13 camps where we are working, it's a lot of people. It's 1,000, between 875 to 1152 people per day. Those are actually those who walk in. But don't forget that some of them cannot actually make it to the camp. So, and access to these places, there are no roads. It takes you about 3-4 days to actually get to one of these camps by road on an SUV, whatever they call it in the States. We call them 4x4s here.
4x4s are good. Wow, so how long? I should probably turn the camera. You can see me. Hi, that's me. How long of a supply of the medicine do you have at any one time? I mean, I guess that sounds like a really ongoing issue to have enough.
What happened was that Direct Relief initially committed to give us $30,000, which they've remitted to us. So that only served us for about 4 weeks. In addition to that, they gave us material supplies, which was worth about $75,000. These were actually medicines, which they actually sent to us, which were in-kind donations. So basically, that has now actually run out because they're distributed to 13 different camps. Now, one of the areas which the international community has not really tackled properly in this response has been the medical aspect of it. And this had been left to the government of Kenya, who doesn't have the capacity to actually do all this because it's got its own problem intrinsically. So what the government said was, we will provide some of our doctors, some of our nurses, some of our nutritionists if we can get them, but we need the material. So where we are coming in, working with other NGOs, is to actually provide that material and tell Direct Relief that if somebody gives you money, we can procure this locally. Or if you've got some stuff in your store, why don't you send it to us, then we can actually send them there. And we think that between now and December, the situation will actually gradually improve. as more and more funding actually comes. But what I advised directly was that if we could commit between 3 to 6 months so that we can support specific camps, because there are many camps, there are over 30, 40 camps, but we can just do 10 to 13, which we are doing at the moment, then that will be a huge contribution. You can look back and say that we've been able to actually convert 780,000 people all to access primary basic health care.
Wow. And so I'm just going to ask one more question, because the follow-up then would be, so it sounds like you're trying through there's two different ways. You could try to go directly to the medicine manufacturers or the pharmaceutical companies and say, hey, donate the stuff, right? Or you could try to, just one person at a time, try to raise the money, the awareness, to try to get the money to go purchase. What do you think is more efficient to do that?
What we found out is that it's easier to actually procure. For example, we've been able to actually procure the medicines and drugs locally. So what Direct Relief does for us is that if they get some funds, they send funds to us, and then we actually procure locally using local procurement companies. And the other reason for that is the transportation aspect of it, because tracking goods, you can't really fly things that are not airstrips or airports. And tracking, and the bandits on the way as well. You've got the Al-Shabaab, you've got vehicles getting ambushed and that sort of thing. So you have to get armed escorts. So what we do, we transfer that risk to the wholesalers whom we buy from. Then we just tell that you're going to have to deliver to me X amount of amoxicillin, which I have paid for at this camp. That is where I'm going to sign the delivery note. So we found that to be actually more easy. In fact, even when we had some of the material with us at Ogre Foundation, we simply piggybacked that onto a truck which we had already loaded up with food and medicines. So it just makes it quicker and easier doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Obviously, we do have challenges in terms of having somebody embedded in the camp themselves because of resource constraints, but we're working very closely with other agencies who actually give us the data on a weekly basis, and we give weekly updates directly on actually what is going on and our ongoing operations.
Mm-hmm. So it's the money. I mean, it's really like trying to raise, donations to be able to locally procure the medicine. That would be probably the best situation for you, right?
Yeah, I think that would be the best situation. Obviously, we can. One of the things which Fred and his team were also trying was to see that the corporations which are traditionally donated to us in the United States, to see whether if they've got branches in Africa, can they actually donate to us locally to actually avoid that time lag. And we are also pursuing that. Obviously, I know there are bigger things which have been happening in the United States with the hurricane season and the elections. So the Horn of Africa famine has not received the biggest of all publicities it could in the United States. It becomes very difficult as well to actually convince donors to give big. We consistently try to actually let people know that we've got over 2 million people affected here, and that is actually those who can count it within villages themselves. Obviously, there are hundreds of people who are actually unaccounted for in terms of they are not part of these numbers. The numbers are those who we have counted and given a food ration card. So it's huge.
Wow. Well, it seems like obviously we can sit here and hear that story and it sounds very compelling, and I think from my perspective, I'm like, okay, where do I go and where do I get you some money so you can get some medicine to these folks? So I guess that a lot of people in this room in front of you right now are probably folks that can probably, I think sounds like a real awareness thing, and how to tell these stories that you're telling us in a way that you're right, there's a lot of noise out there and there's a lot of causes out there, and poverty here is going up, and a lot of people asking for things. But I think but then on the other hand, I think there's a lot of heart here that we can spread this around a little bit, and then I think it becomes a numbers thing where if $10, $20, $30, whatever it is, I think there's a way to I think there would be the way here in the States, I would think, to be able to get more awareness of this issue, because these are numbers that, you're right, you don't see them you don't read them in the newspapers here, you don't see it on the news, so it really becomes purely a public relations and awareness issue, and I think
our approach there, our approach is just, the same way we've been doing it directly. It's actually little at a time. We started with $10,000, then we got another $8,000, then we got another $12,000, then we got the materials. So I think what we've been able to do was to simply commit to the NGO council based on whatever little that actually comes in, and we just procure locally, and we continually update Directly's website and their actually, so that they know and people know what is going on, where we are on a weekly basis. So we make those updates as well, and we've got obviously a lot of write-up about it happening. But as you have said, it's very difficult to actually, get this monies. But it's a huge problem. The problem you're having, obviously, there's quite a lot happening in the world. So a lot of, you have flood from Pakistan recently. As I said, the hurricane season. I mean, last week in Kenya alone, as 3-4 days ago, we had a pipeline disaster, killing about 212 people, which we sent some funds things to. So you've got a lot of emergencies which are actually coming. So to concentrate on one, my view is that, whatever little, I told Direct Relief team that, whatever little people, corporations, and individuals can raise will go a long way. We are spending, I think, on average, it's in the region of about, ideally, what we need is about $288,000 over a 6-month period. So if you divide that per month, and that will be giving you 1,000 people being seen every single day in 13 camps. So that is a lot of people. There's 13,000 people being seen per day. If those camps are running daily, at the moment, those camps only run based on availability of material and staff. And obviously, the government of Kenya itself is overstretched. So they're also saying, we're not going to send our staff to the middle of nowhere unless they're guaranteed work for at least a week or 2 weeks. And this stuff, and that for us has actually brought the figures much lower down, because if we had to actually then pay for staff, doctors and nurses, it's very, very difficult. But I think it's one day at a time,
yeah. I'm sorry, I've been asking all the questions.
Those are great questions.
Yeah? Anybody? I think that, go ahead.
With you guys.
Can you ask the question again?
Do you have Brett Williams with you in the same room, or is somewhere else?
Brett is, he's actually talking to another doctor in another room. So we've broken into 4 groups. But he gave he did give us a rundown yesterday of what DRI is doing. So I think we have a good sense of some of the challenges that Direct Relief has, especially around awareness. And so that's what we're kind of challenged with, trying to help. Like, what can this group of people do to help DRI with getting awareness out there? Because I think we all agree that that's the biggest challenge right now. Is DRI is a great organization. They've been around for 40-some years, 60-some years, and a lot of people don't even know who they are.
And I just want to actually mention that this is not the first time that we are working with DRI in managing emergencies in this part of the world. In 2008, when we had the post-election violence, actually, my organization, the Okra Foundation, I was very new. My relationship with DRI was very new then, and within 48 hours, they were able to actually mobilize funds, which they still didn't have, and we were able to expatriate a lot of different tribes from this town during the carnage of post-election violence. And I think, we raised, directly supported us, to a tune of about $200,000 in cash, and we were repatriating people in buses to go and pick up a different tribe from another town. We were running medical camps every day, so I've worked with them for 4 years now, and I think that their emergency response is absolutely superb. So, and obviously, I'm sure if you go to their website, you see some of the emergency responded. Last year, they gave us money as well when we had flooding. The problem with Africa is that there's disaster after disaster after disaster. There's always the next thing coming, So.
Yeah.
So when you think about the everyday story, the people that you're treating every day, can you share with us, what's the typical, ailment that you see people for? I mean, it sounds to me like you're treating just normal things, right?
The biggest video, which I don't know whether it's made YouTube, probably it's made YouTube, is is a lady. I mean, we've had a lady who had died and had a small kid who was actually breastfeeding on this decomposing corpse, which we first saw on TV here. And then next to this mother who had died, and the 8-month-old baby is sort of like breastfeeding on a decomposing corpse, was the younger brother, who was 3.5, who was also standing about 5 or 6 meters away, and these were found by cameramen. Again, this little boy was also actually trying to actually milk a goat with his mouth, to actually feed, and it was a gory picture. And if you look at the women and children who come to camps every day, apart from just malnutrition, which is running at 87% of people who are being seen, the children are completely malnourished. It's a huge burden. They've walked, the average person has walked 3 to 5 kilometers to get to the medical camp. And don't forget that where the medical camps are not where the food camps are. So people will then have to prioritize that, should I go for the food first or get the medicine? So what we're trying to do is actually to make sure that, obviously the bigger camps like Kakuma and Dadaab have got 2-in-1, but the smaller, because we are concentrating on the fringes where actually the Oxfams or the big guys, the World Visions on the care are not there. We are going to the dispensaries where you only find 800 to 1,000 people stranded. So those are the places which are very, very hard to reach. So that gives you a typical day. It's actually a mother with a child, both completely malnourished. They've not eaten for weeks. They've walked 3 to 5 kilometers. The child has got, it's completely malnourished. It's amazing scene. But I think that is what we are seeing every day. Obviously, because we are here, there are more and more of those pictures we see every day, and the stories we get from our field officers we're working with.
Why are the medical camps not where the food camps are? Why are they separated?
On the bigger camps, the food camp and the medical camps are together. But that is for those who have got enough energy to actually walk to the camp. Now, those who are too tired and too weak to walk can only be reached through local government dispensaries or health centers, some of which are abandoned. Now, the approach we're using is to actually go and hunt for those pockets of people. Now, those are the little dispensary health centers where we're seeing 1,000 people, either bomb-blast or actually walking in. Now, at those camps, one, the government, where the agencies don't know some of them exist because of lack of logistical support and transportation and communication. And 2, food can actually not get there because by the time the foods are in the big camp like Dadaab, it runs out there anyway. So nobody thinks about, if you want to access food, you have to make it here. That is the best they can do for you, because there's no capacity to go beyond big camps. So I think that is what is happening. So now what we're doing with the Red Cross is to say that we will concentrate on the medical side of things. We'll do the medical camps and outreaches while you bring the food. So we are actually, the same convoy truck, the container, the 20 food, is carrying food for X number of people per week, and also medicines for X number of people per week. So that is the new approach we're using in the health centers and dispensaries.
For stories that are coming out, and you mentioned that video, but is there someone that can, it sounds to me that the stories have to come out in a way that, because and this is just from my experience of what gets presented here in the States, that compels people to give. And
I think there was something on the New York Times today as well regarding the Horn of Africa famine. I think today and 2 days ago as well. They were, I think I mentioned quite a few articles regarding this situation. But obviously, I think classically speaking, that these refugees are not just Somalis. Some of them are pastoralists who are nomads, they're not sedentary persons. They walk from one place to the other. And the most affected group, which is actually women and children under 5. If you look at its high mortality rates, most of these women are dying, all their animals have died, and they solely depend on animals. And the problem which is there at that part of Africa is you either have drought or flood. So as we speak now, we've had drought, now we've had flood, so now we are dealing with cholera, typhoid, dysentery. While initially we are just dealing with malnutrition and actually water issues. So we are, even getting clean water is a real issue. We are tracking water in big water bowsers and tanks. So I think the problems are huge, and you can classify them. From my point of view, is that you can classify them, saying that the malnutrition problems for pregnant women and children is number one, and that is what we are treating. Then the second thing is water and sanitation. Getting clean water to these people, the only place to get clean water is at a health center or a dispensary. And these guys are pastoralists. Once you give them water, they turn up with their goat. And I'm thinking, it sounds like a joke, but they turn up with their goat as well. So you give them water, you have to give goat water as well. That's a secondary thing. Right. But they will die with their goat. Hence the story which I actually told you. And then there is the accommodation. Where do they stay? There are issues to do with tents. There are issues to do with toilets and latrines. So it's a huge, huge issue. So if you take it as an organization, DRI cannot actually take the whole issue. That's why we just said that we're going to do what we do best, which is we'll provide material support in terms of medical supplies and equipment if we can get it there. If somebody else can provide human resource. So somebody else can cover water and sanitation, right. Somebody else can cover food. So that sort of thing.
Is there a way to connect to the individual stories?
Yeah.
So we have a question. Is there a way to connect to the individual stories?
Or to get them out.
Or to get them out.
Get them out to the public eye, yeah.
What do you mean? In terms of actually getting a picture and an interview or that sort of thing?
Or even a doctor to retell the story.
Like you're doing now.
Like you're doing now.
But not about...
what we've got actually is that we've got a consortium of NGOs who have got a few data officers and community health workers who are actually embedded within the camps themselves or within the villages themselves, but they're actually out in Turkana. So obviously, unless we make an arrangement for one of them to actually travel, it will take 3 or 4 days to get back to where we can access internet and this sort of thing. Because out there, basically, there is no internet connection, and the mobile phones really don't work very well. The connections are completely redundant. So those are some of the issues which exist. We need to get somebody either to Nairobi or to Kisumu for us to actually be able to communicate. But we can arrange that based on if you guys think that would be useful.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could even do the stories, a taped version, or it doesn't have to be real time, but I.
Yeah, we can do that. What I can do is that I could obviously work with Brett to try and get you probably a copy of one of our reports, or get one of the clinical officers or nurses who are in the field to connect one of the stories on one of the camps which they work in, and pass that on to you guys. If you want it in audio, then we might have to actually probably load it up through YouTube or something. Because our internet speeds are too slow to really load up huge attachments. I know those are some of the things, unless we actually FedEx it to you.
Yeah, it could be old school.
And
It could be a tape, it could be a CD, whatever.
Because I think it sounds weird, but I think you throw out these high numbers, and they're numbers, right? And they're astounding numbers, but it's hard to connect with numbers. And I think the more stories, and that's an interesting discussion to have, whether you highlight the bummer stories that don't work out versus the stories that where you actually do the good, right? And a mother comes in there and you do something for them, and they can live and thrive, at least for the time being, for what you've done. You go back and forth as to which of those stories is better, I say, to get out there. But I think the stories have to be told, because it has to get down to a personal level, I think, for that to, the kind of donating and the donations.
It feels like something you can actually have an effect on if it's one person versus 700,000 people.
That you can affect one person, and that makes a difference for them. And that's why a lot of organizations try to connect to, go as far as saying, give $10 for Susie or somebody for their drug, for their drugs. So that's why stories, I think, are important.
I think we can get you. We can get you sort of probably summarized bullet point kind of reports in terms of actually, what if you want us to sort of cut it down in terms of saying, what would $1 do, what would $10 do? We can actually work out how much money do we actually need to see 1,000 people per day in terms of essential medicines and supplies.
That is good.
And then you can actually divide that into that. Obviously, you can get you pictures, because most of these things might be pictures in terms of the medical camps themselves or of the individuals themselves. Or the personal stories. You know, you can get personal stories of families who have been to the camp and what they think the camp has done for them. So I think we can get some of those. So I can get those and email to Brett, and then obviously Brett can pass them on to the team.
So Herzon, I think what we're going to do, we asked for about half an hour of your time, and I think we've taken it. We've used all of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm some ideas on what we can do to help. And we're going to work with Brett and the group, and we're going to try to solve some of these challenges for you. And so you'll be hearing from us again through Brett over the next week or so, probably.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
It was great meeting you.
Yes.
God bless you for the efforts that you do there.
Gentlemen, enjoy your time.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Herzon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. That was cool.